What is the most satisfying case of instant karma you have ever witnessed? The hotel I worked at hosted a hockey tournament, and we had a long weekend filled with families and their lovely ice hockey crotch goblins that had traveled from all over the Midwest to attend. Over 80% of our 300-ish rooms were filled with people for this event. Our parking lot was already too small for the hotel, so we had to remind guests that they could use the lot across the street if they couldn't find parking there. At first, we didn't think we needed to point out all the signs about not parking in unpaved areas. The next day is mostly quiet, with some groups coming in and out to rest when they had longer times between matches. No biggie. Until it started to snow incredibly hard. What started as too few parking spaces turned into a massive shortage of spaces as no one could see the lines in the lot, and people with SUVs and four-wheel drive thought they could do anything and park anywhere. These were the vehicles of choice for hockey families lugging around thousands of dollars in gear. People are parked so poorly we can't get a plow through our lot and are actively directing people to park in the plowed and flat lot across the street, even offering our shuttle to carry equipment across the street. Of course, they don't, and by the time everyone is somewhat settling in for the night because, at the very least, 2 to 3 games of hockey in a single day do wear the kids out, our parking lot looks like a snow tornado went through it with vehicles parked pretty much wherever they wanted. Our maintenance manager clocked out and returned a few minutes later, telling us there were vehicles parked on the grass, 1 lifted vehicle over a hydrant, and half a dozen on the pond behind the hotel. The night manager had 22 cars towed for illegal parking, some were blocking hydrants, and others were dangerously on the pond. We handed out the information about the tow yard to those who had their vehicles towed and called a handful of cabs. We called and gave the tow yard a heads up that they might want to back up. Then, in walks, Mr. Majorkface gave us a grilling. He, his wife, and their prodigy son were staying in our presidential suite, and how dare we tow his $100,000 top-of-the-line SUV from the center of the pond, no less. And if there was so much as a scratch on it, he would personally sue each of us. He also expressed how big of a mistake he made by not staying in the 5-star hotel down the street, where they knew how to treat his type of people. He demanded a refund for his room nights, to which our VP firmly refused and told him that if he could find a room elsewhere, he was welcome to do so. He eventually left the desk, and the next couple of hours had a few other complainers, mainly those getting their vehicles back, sheepishly sulking back into the hotel, while it's $120 lighter. And then noon hit, and Mr. Majorkface threw open our sliding entrance doors when they did not open quickly enough for him and stomped straight towards us gals at the desk. One of our guest service guys popped out and stood between him and us because he was convinced he would jump the desk and attack us. Mr. Majorkface was beet red. He couldn't get his $100,000 top-of-the-line SUV back because the police had confiscated it. We were half amused at the karma this guy was incurring but also half terrified, thinking he might be a mobster or something. His wife, who we were finally getting a look at, just looked like an Eastern European mail-order bride who had barely learned an American accent. She was trying fruitlessly to calm him down and get him to go back to the room and then go to the hockey game. His kid, who I did genuinely feel sorry for, was watching this tirade looking dumbstruck, holding some of his hockey gear. Another of the front desk gals went into the back and called the police because, honestly, we did not feel safe. She came back out and, what seemed to be too quickly, whispered to me, "They're already here." I turned my head, and 3 cops walked in our front door and went directly for Mr. Majorkface. Mr. Majorkface still didn't seem to get it at this point, and he turned to the officers and started berating them for having no right to confiscate his vehicle, how they didn't know how to do their jobs, and so on. And then the handcuffs came out. Mr. Majorkface got arrested in front of his wife and kid in the middle of our lobby, but it seemed like they'd just walk him out. He was already a bit belligerent with the officers, though, and then one of the cops said something to him. In response, he shouted in the officer's face. He was then roughly taken out of the hotel, and the wife and kid scurried off. At checkout 2 days later, one of the refs for the tournament was paying for his incidentals and said, "For a voucher for breakfast, I'll tell you what happened." I've never seen our desk manager sign a voucher so fast. She had been away for the 2 days and the aftermath day but still wanted all the gossip. The ref was older and had been around a while and knew the whole story. Mr. Majorkface was well known among the hockey tourney officials for being that guy, flaunting his money, causing drama, and being a huge hockey aficionado. He had another family with 4 kids, 1 boy and 3 girls. The boy was injured when he was just starting to play hockey at the age of 6 or 7. Whatever happened, he couldn't play hockey anymore. Mr. Majorkface attacked the parent of the boy who had crashed into his son instead of accompanying him in the ambulance to the hospital. It was a big, memorable scene, much like the one we experienced. So what did Mr. Majorkface do? He left his family, filed for divorce, and pretty much just ignored them entirely. He remarried a few months later and quickly had a little boy, who he had on the ice by kindergarten. The boy is 10 now. The ref overheard the wife crying to some of the other moms that he was arrested for the combination of owing nearly $500,000 in back child support and some other unspecified financial crimes. Basically, he was hiding his money to avoid paying child support to his first family. The dude was literally living the high life with his replacement kid and wife. Apparently, his vehicle getting towed set off the flag so that this guy could be found and taken in. A few weeks later, after a fight in our bar, one of the arresting cops returned. We asked him if it was true what Mr. Majorkface was arrested for. He told us he couldn't comment on specifics but that sometimes judges like to set the bail for the egregious child support evaders, the ones who have it but are probably hiding it, at the amount of their back owed child support. He mentioned that big support cases are likely to make the news wherever he was sent off. We all remembered where he was from, and it didn't take us long to find the article about the guy with the $500,000 bail over child support. He was immediately arrested again after he bonded out, this time by the feds.